It's 3 p.m., you're still replaying that brutal meeting in your head, and suddenly you're standing at the vending machine with a candy bar in your hand before you even decided to walk over there. Or it's 9 p.m., you've had a fight with your partner, and an hour later you're ordering pizza you didn't even want 20 minutes ago. Here's the part that should confuse you. Stress is supposed to kill your appetite. Your body thinks it's in danger, so why is it demanding sugar instead of shutting hunger down completely? The answer involves a hormone that's quietly rewriting your brain's rules about food the moment things get hard. This is why stress doesn't just stress you out, it specifically makes you crave sugar. Push hum. You've probably filed this under weak willpower, but that explanation has a hole in it. You don't lose control around broccoli when you're stressed. You lose control around cookies and candy specifically. That's strange. Willpower failures should be random. This isn't random. Which means the real question isn't why you can't control yourself. It's why your body is running a very specific, very old program the moment it senses danger, even when the danger is just an inbox or an argument. Something is rewriting the rules in real time, and once you see what it is, the vending machine stops being a mystery. Here's where it actually starts. The moment your brain registers that meeting as a threat, or that fight with your partner as a threat, it doesn't pause to ask whether the danger is emotional or physical. It just sounds the alarm. And the alarm it sounds was built for one thing only: physical danger. Something chasing you. Something you need to fight off or run from. Your brain triggers a hormone release designed for that world, not the world of inboxes and difficult conversations. The hormone is cortisol, and once it's released, your body starts preparing for a battle that is never actually going to happen. Cortisol's first move is fast and blunt. It raises your blood sugar immediately. Think of it like a manager who hears there might be an emergency and instantly unlocks every supply cabinet in the building, just in case. Glucose floods into your bloodstream so your muscles have fuel ready to run or fight. This is the biological backdrop behind that 3 p.m. crash. Your body already spiked your blood sugar for a threat that never required a single physical movement. You sat in that meeting, you didn't run from it, but your bloodstream doesn't know the difference between a predator and a passive-aggressive email. It just knows there was a threat, so it delivered fuel. That would almost make sense on its own, except your body doesn't stop there. While the glucose is flooding in fast, a second, slower signal is building in the brain. This one is more specific. It doesn't just ask for calories in general. It asks for a very particular kind of calorie: high fat, high sugar. This is where a brain chemical called neuropeptide Y comes in. Cortisol increases neuropeptide Y levels, and neuropeptide Y is essentially a messenger with one job: drive you toward dense, fast-burning fuel. Not lean protein, not a salad, sugar and fat specifically. This is the piece that explains something you may have noticed but never had a name for: why the vending machine candy bar, and not the almonds sitting right next to it. Neuropeptide Y doesn't whisper "eat something," it whispers "eat that." And once you see this mechanism, the pizza an hour after the fight with your partner stops being confusing. The argument itself wasn't physically dangerous. Nobody needed to sprint away from the living room, but your brain didn't file the fight under emotional discomfort. It filed it under threat. Cortisol rose, neuropeptide Y rose right along with it, and an hour later you're staring at a delivery app with a craving that feels enormous and oddly specific. Not hunger in general, a very particular kind of hunger, engineered by a chemical you never knew existed until this exact moment. Here's the part that makes all of this less strange and more understandable. None of this is a modern malfunction. It's an ancient shortcut, and it made excellent sense for most of human history. If you were being chased by something with teeth, the fastest available fuel was exactly what you needed. Sugar burns quick and hot. Fat gets stored and mobilized for longer emergencies. The entire system was built by evolution as a rapid response fueling program for genuine physical danger. The problem is that this program has no update installed for deadlines, traffic, or arguments. It's running 2020's emotional stress through software written for being hunted. The pizza craving isn't a glitch, it's ancient circuitry doing exactly what it was built to do, just aimed at a threat that never needed fuel in the first place. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because cortisol isn't only turning up the craving. At the very same time, it's turning down the system that would normally shut the craving off. Under calm conditions, a hormone called leptin sends a signal to your brain that says, essentially, enough, you're full, stop eating. It's the brake pedal. But chronic stress dulls leptin signaling. The brake pedal still exists, but it stops responding the way it should. So at the exact moment neuropeptide Y is turning up the demand for sugar and fat, leptin resistance is quietly loosening the brakes that would normally stop you from overdoing it. This is why a sleeve of cookies can disappear at night without you really tasting a single one. It's not that you decided to eat the whole sleeve, it's that the signal that usually interrupts eating with a full feeling simply arrived weaker or arrived late. And this effect doesn't reset overnight. A single stressful day gives you a short-lived craving spike, cortisol up, neuropeptide Y up, then back down once the stress passes. But stress rarely shows up as a single isolated day for most adults. It shows up as a string of them. Repeated stress stacks the effect. Neuropeptide Y stays elevated longer. Leptin resistance builds instead of resetting. This is part of why a rough night of stress-disrupted sleep tends to produce a sugar craving the very next day, even before anything stressful has happened yet that morning. The system didn't fully power down overnight. It's still running warm from yesterday, waiting for the next perceived threat to justify the fuel it already primed you to want. Here's the good news buried inside all that biology. Cortisol spikes are not permanent fixtures. They're built to rise fast and fall fast, the moment your brain gets a signal that the danger has passed. The same speed that flooded your bloodstream with glucose at 3 p.m. can work in reverse. Once your brain reclassifies the situation as safe, the whole cascade starts winding down on its own. You're not fighting a permanent state. You're riding out a wave that already has a built-in ending if you give it the right signal. So here's the reset, and it's smaller than you'd expect. The next time a stress craving hits, before you eat anything, pause for 60 seconds and take 5 slow, deep breaths. That's it, not skipping the food, not white-knuckling through willpower, just a pause. Standing at the vending machine, candy bar already in hand, is exactly the moment this is built for. 5 slow breaths is roughly enough time to interrupt the automatic reach and give your nervous system a chance to send a different signal, one that says the threat has passed, before your hand finishes the motion it already started. While you're in that pause, here's what's worth noticing, because this isn't about forcing an outcome. Notice whether the craving feels like your stomach or like your head. Real hunger tends to build slowly and stays fairly calm about it. A stress craving tends to arrive fast, urgent, almost loud, like it needs an answer right now. That urgency itself is a clue. It's cortisol and neuropeptide Y talking, not your stomach. And when you notice that, try to hold on to this. The craving was never a sign that you're broken or weak. It was your body attempting to protect you using the only tool it had. Stress eating a sleeve of cookies without tasting a single one isn't sabotage. It's an ancient fueling system doing its job with outdated instructions. Once you see it that way, the guilt afterward starts to lose its grip, because guilt was never the accurate response to biology functioning exactly as designed. Over the next week, treat this pause less like a rule and more like an experiment. Some cravings might fade entirely during those 60 seconds. Others might soften just slightly. Some might stay exactly as strong as they were before you started breathing. All 3 outcomes are useful information, not failure. The 3 p.m. crash and the post-argument pizza craving may behave completely differently from each other, and noticing that difference is the actual point. You're not trying to defeat a craving, you're trying to finally see it clearly. And here's the part that matters most. The pause never asks you to skip the candy bar or turn down the pizza. If you still want it after those 5 breaths, you can absolutely have it. The goal was never restriction. The goal was creating one small gap between the cortisol impulse and your decision, so that the choice becomes yours again, instead of being made automatically by a hormone that thinks you're being chased by something with teeth. Which brings us back to that vending machine. The candy bar in your hand, before you even decided to walk over there, was never really about the candy. It was cortisol shouting for fast fuel, neuropeptide Y pointing directly at sugar and fat, leptin resistance keeping the brakes just a little too loose to stop you in time. The pizza an hour after the fight was the exact same shout, just wearing a different outfit. None of that was a personal failure. It was an old survival program, answering a modern problem with the only language it knows. The 60-second pause doesn't silence that voice completely. It just gives you a chance to hear it, recognize what it actually is, and then decide, on your own terms, what happens next.